go. All right, this is Dawn Heinle, and this is my informative speech for my speech class. I have my head count. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 adults in the room. And I have my visual aid right here, Andy Johnson. Ready, set? And we're going. Imagine you have your suspicions that your child has just lied to you. How do you read their body language to be able to tell if they're telling you the truth? Oftentimes we incorrectly assume that by watching someone's face or eyes, we can tell if they're lying to us, but that's a common misjudgment. There are many other nonverbal behaviors we need to be aware of if we want to read people for what they're truly saying. I would like to educate you on what to look for and what these behaviors could mean. Now, what exactly is nonverbal behavior? According to Joe Navarro's book, What Every Body is Saying, an ex-FBI agent's guide to speed reading people, he says, nonverbal communication, often referred to as nonverbal behavior or body language, is a means of transmitting information just like the spoken word, except it is achieved through facial expressions, gestures, touching, physical movements, posture, body adornment such as clothes, jewelry, hairstyles, and tattoos, and even the tone, timbre, and volume of an individual's voice, rather than the spoken content. Nonverbal behaviors comprise approximately 60 to 65% of all interpersonal communication. He also says nonverbal communication can also reveal a person's true thoughts, feelings, and intentions. For this reason, nonverbal behaviors are sometimes referred to as tells. They tell us about a person's true state of mind. Because people are not always aware that they are communicating nonverbally, body language is often more honest than an individual's verbal pronouncements, which are consciously crafted to accomplish the speaker's objective. So, let's briefly examine how our brains are hardwired for this method of communication. First off, there's a section of our brain called the limbic brain, that reacts to the world around us instantaneously in real time and without thought. Because of this, it's considered true response to environmental information coming in. There is no way to shut this segment down because it's hardwired for our survival. In brief terms, we are hardwired to respond in 3 distinct ways: freeze, flight, or fight, which you commonly know about the fight or flight syndrome, but technically our brains teach us to freeze momentarily to process the information coming in before we then decide whether to flee or fight the situation. Let me give you 3 distinct examples. First off, imagine you and your family are sitting eating ice cream watching TV, and suddenly the doorbell rings. For just that split second, you freeze mid-spoon and mid-air while your brain processes whether or not the doorbell was really a threat or not, and then someone realizes, duh, it's the doorbell, and they get up to answer the door. Another method is when you're leaving your car and going to the office, suddenly realizing you forgot something in the car, you technically freeze for just that split second before you turn around and go back to the car to get what you forgot. And the third example I want to give of this freeze behavior is, say, in a life-threatening situation. If you're walking your small dog and suddenly a large dog comes lumbering at you, you're going to freeze for just that second before your brain decides whether to pick up your dog and run or face the situation at hand. So, these examples should help you realize that our brains are hardwired to temporarily protect us while we process environmental information coming in. We then will have the fight or flight response appropriately after that, and here's where I'm going to go into the nonverbal behaviors that display those responses. First off, let's talk about our legs. Our legs and feet are incredibly truthful indicators of our intentions. If we are standing facing someone who's asking us tough questions, our feet will literally point in the direction in which we really want to go. So, if we're desperate to leave the situation, at least one foot will be pointing out the door. If we're seated, this information will take on a position similar to a pounce. One foot in front of the other, hands on the knees, and leaning forward. He doesn't want to be here, he'd rather leave. Now, on the flip side of the coin, if we're in a high level of comfort with a given situation, we may cross our legs, whether seated or standing, to show that we're confident in our situation. If we're seated, comfortable, and our legs are crossed to show this, then our crossed legs will not block us from the other person we're talking to. Now, to cross your legs across from the other person symbolizes a blocking maneuver, and this is our limbic brain telling us that he's protecting himself from a potential threat. As long as we're talking about blocking and protecting, the next nonverbal behavior speaks volumes about that when we discuss the torso. Go ahead and stand up for me. By crossing our arms in front of our torso, we're actually subconsciously protecting and comforting ourselves at the same time. We do this when we don't like the information we're hearing, or when we're upset or defiant. Another behavior that we do with the torso is to lean in when we are interested, or to lean away when we don't agree with what's being said. The torso is oftentimes neglected when people watch for nonverbal behavior, and that's unfortunate because its reactions are so connected to our limbic brains to protect our vital organs, and that's why it's one of the most honest indicators of how we're feeling or what we're truly thinking. In another sense, our arms are also largely underappreciated when it comes to nonverbal cues. Our arms are significant in displaying signs of comfort, discomfort, confidence, self-doubt, or other emotions we're feeling. And similar to our legs and feet, our arms are so reactive and poised to protect us that they even come to our defense even when it's illogical. See, like in the crime shows where they're showing self-defense wounds, sometimes it just doesn't seem like it's defensive, it's survival mode, even though it's not really going to do much to protect us. When looking at how the arms play a role in conversations, there are a couple of things I'd like to mention. Andy here is displaying what's called hooding, and that's a behavior indicative of comfort and dominance that you will see most likely from someone in charge and confident of their position. Another display of dominance, go ahead and stand for me, is having the arms akimbo. Now, what this means, with the hands on the hips, this is an effective way for someone to demonstrate that they're standing their ground and they're confident. But women oftentimes show this, but in a different means, with their thumbs forward. And by doing that, that's a sign of inquisitiveness, not necessarily authoritativeness. Go ahead, have a seat. This brings me to the importance of the hands with nonverbal behavior. Oh, I'm sorry, I do need you to stand one more time, thank you. Hiding the hands gives a negative impression that someone is trying to hide something. Again, the author of the book, What Everybody is Saying, Joe Navarro, says, research tells us liars tend to gesture less, touch less, and move their arms and legs less than honest people. This again goes back to our limbic brain reaction to freeze in the face of a threat, so that we move less and don't attract attention. So look for hand and arm movements that are suddenly restrained because they say a lot about what's going on inside that person's brain. Now, on to one of the most surprising facts about nonverbal behaviors: our faces aren't to be trusted. We've been taught all our lives to smile at relatives that we can't stand, or to tell little white lies to avoid hurting someone's feelings. With that, we were taught early in our development how to have a poker face. If there's one thing I learned in researching nonverbal behaviors, the thing to watch for the face is a split-second flash behavior. A person may have a poker face when they lie, but deep down our limbic brain will still tell the truth of any matter with just a brief second of true expression. Ready? Squinting is one of those behaviors for just a split second, but reveals a person's true feelings. This is a blocking behavior when our bodies are trying to prevent negative information from reaching our brains. So an example, let's say you see someone you don't really like and they're just a few hundred feet away from you. Technically speaking, you'll squint for just that split second before you smile and wave at that person. On the contrary, if something surprises someone, their eyes get wide and their eyebrows go up, but just only for that split second. When a person holds that position longer, it may be a sign of deception because they're trying to make sure that you see that they're surprised. See how you can't trust someone's facial expressions? Thank you, Andy. Let's review some of the nonverbal behaviors that I've mentioned today and how they can be helpful when detecting deception. Look for sudden lack of movement from all areas because that's indicative of freezing to reduce negative attention. Watch for legs, feet, arms, and hands for protective behaviors like crossing the arms in front of the torso or escape moves like having one foot practically out the door. And don't trust the face for signs of deception. A person who's lying may actually make more eye contact with you in order to try and prove their point to you. Instead, watch for quick flash expressions that may tell you the true story without the person really knowing it. I hope you've seen today that our human brain is an amazing communicator. Our limbic brains will more likely tell the truth, whether we like it or not, and try as we might to prevent that, it's hardwired and not possible. There are two main points I'd like to leave you with as you ponder nonverbal behaviors today. One, not any one behavior is indicative of a person's deception. What you want to watch for is clusters of these behaviors to show that the person may not be entirely truthful. And secondly, before you have that aha moment and point at someone accusing them of lying, take it all in first and realize that the person could just be having a nervous reaction due to the stress of the moment. Being accused of lying isn't fun for anyone, so to be nervous is normal. But if you're asking simple questions and getting clusters of strange behaviors, then you may want to ask yourself, what is this person not saying with their words? And what is their body really trying to tell me? Good luck!